Okay, number 1, what is the length of the hypotenuse? So the hypotenuse is across from the 90-degree angle. The hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle. There's only a hypotenuse in a right triangle. So I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it's going to be 8 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. These two are the legs. They are A and B. And it doesn't matter if you use A here, B here, A here, it doesn't matter. So it's going to be 64 plus 144 equals c squared. So 64 plus 144 is 208, so c squared equals 208. So you gotta take the square root of 208. So you want to leave this in simplified radical form, so you need to simplify the square root of 208. So 208 is 104 and 2. 2 and 52. 2 and 26. 2 and 13. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 2's on the outside. So it's going to be 2 times 2 on the outside, root 13, which is 4 root 13. We don't need to do plus or minus because it's a distance. Okay, number 2, find the missing side length of the right triangle. So it's telling us this is a right angle. This time we have this hypotenuse. So C is going to be our 11. So it goes A, B, C. So it's going to be 9 squared plus B squared equals 11 squared. 81 plus B squared equals 121. Subtract 81. B squared equals 40. And then take the square root. So B equals 2 root 10. When you break this down, always break down your simplified root to simplify your roots. Okay, number 3, classify each as acute, obtuse, or right. So right is going to be a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Acute is going to be a squared plus b squared is greater than c squared. And obtuse is going to be a squared plus b squared is less than c squared. Because the hypotenuse is, or the third side is so long. The third side is shorter. So what you do is you take the two shorter sides and do 10 squared plus 7 squared and see how it relates to 12 squared. So this is going to be 149 and 144. So this is So a squared plus b squared is greater, so this is going to be an acute triangle. The third one, I take the two smaller sides, so 7 squared plus 8 squared, and see how it relates to 14 squared. So 49 plus 64, how does that relate to 196? Well, 196 is greater, so this one is obtuse. So that third side is big. So think of an obtuse triangle. That third side is long. That makes it obtuse. These, I take the two shorter ones, so 9 squared plus 12 squared, and see how it relates to 15 squared. So 81 plus 144 is 225. This is 225. They're equal, so it is a right triangle. And then number 4 up here, what is the length of the diagonal of a square with sides equal to 10? So if I draw in the diagonal, and these are all right angles, this is an isosceles right triangle. So this is a 45, 45, 90. So the ratios are 1, 1, root 2. And I'm trying to find what this is. So if you have an isosceles right triangle, the hypotenuse is take a short side and add root 2 to it. So the answer is 10 root 2. And then number 5, you have a 30, 60, 90. So I'm going to draw a 30, 60, 90. And I'm going to label the ratios. 1, 2, root 3. So if I'm trying to find what C is, I'm going to do this proportion. 25 is to C as root 3 is to 2. Cross multiply. 50 equals C root 3. Solve for C. Divide by root 3, divide by root 3. And the last thing you want to do is rationalize. So multiply the top by root 3 and the bottom by root 3. So you get 50 root 3 over 3 equals C. Oops, so that's the hypotenuse. So you can do the short side as, this is the short side, so the short side is always half of the hypotenuse. So I can take half of this hypotenuse, which is 25 root 3 over 3. That's what D equals. Or you can use proportions. And so I'll do it that way too. So it's going to be D is to 25 as 1 is to root 3. Cross multiply root 3D, or D root 3, equals 25. Divide both sides by root 3. And when you rationalize it, you're going to get this over here. Okay, number 6. 6 doesn't have any markings for angles, but I can tell that it's an isosceles right triangle, so these have to be 45. So next to it, I'm going to draw a 45, 45, 90, and write the ratios in. So the ratios are 1, 1, root 2. Now I can use proportions to solve for y. So it's y is to 28 as 1 is to root 2. Cross multiply, root 2y equals 28. Divide both sides by root 2. And then rationalize. So I have 28 root 2 over 2. 28 divided by 2 is 14 root 2. Okay, number 7. Again, you have a 45, 45, 90. So draw in the ratios. 1, 1, root 2. So use proportions to solve for h. 1 is to root 2 as 5 root 6 is to h. Cross multiply. So h equals 5, and then I'm going to put the roots together. Root 2, root 6. Well, you can combine these two square roots to be h equals 5 root 12. Now you need to break down root 12. So root 12 is going to be equal to 2 root 3. So I'm going to write h equals 5 times 2 root 3, because that's the same thing as root 12. Root 12 is 2 root 3. So in the end, you have h equals 10 root 3. Okay, then number 8, I'm going to write in my ratios here. The short side is 1, the long side is root 3, and the hypotenuse is 2. So I'm going to set up a ratio, or proportion. 4 is to root 3, or 4 root 3 is to x as 2 is to 1. Cross multiply. 2x equals 4 root 3, and then divide both sides by 2. X equals 2 root 3. Which makes sense because the the short side is always half of the hypotenuse. So take half of this and it's 2 root 3. The long side is take the short side and multiply it by root 3. So then the y is going to be 2 times root 3 is 3. So y is equal to 6. Or you can set up a proportion if you want. It's just a faster way to do it, what I just did. Okay, then what are the legs of the right triangle? So this is an isosceles right triangle. Again, so I do 45, 45, 90, 1, 1, root 2. So we're trying to find the legs, so these two legs are both the same. Proportion. X is to 7 root 2 as 1 is to root 2. Cross multiply. Root 2 times x equals 7 root 2. Solve for x. These two cancel out, so x equals 7. Or you could look at, this is the short side, or this is the leg, and the hypotenuse is always the leg times root 2, so that would have been faster, but still you could use proportion. And the last one, we're trying to find the legs. So I'm going to set up the same way, draw my ratio 1, 1, root 2, 45, 45, 90. So I'm going to do x is to 16 as 1 is to root 2. So it's going to be root 2x equals 16. So then I'm going to rationalize root 2 over root 2. X equals 16 root 2 over 2, but you have to simplify this to be 8 root 2 is your answer.